Hello, everyone. This is Denise Wilbanks, and with me today is a very exciting person I've been looking to meet. And I'm going to turn it over to him so he can introduce himself. Hi, Scott.
Hi. Well, that's the shortest introduction I've ever heard. Well, my name is Scott Mandelker. Thank you very much for having me on the interview. Uh, is there anything you'd like to ask right now before we start?
There's so much I want to ask you, Scott. But let me just tell you a little bit about why I've come over to meet with you. And thank you, by the way, to agreeing to doing this interview. I know it's a different time zone in your neck of the woods as it is here, but I'm delighted that you've agreed to do this interview. I did want to share with you, and I appreciate that you've been working with the raw material for a number of years, and that is one of the reasons why I have an interest in speaking with you. The raw material has been at the top of my mind and been studying it, and I know that you have mastered many areas about it, so that's kind of the direction that I would like to take us this evening. If you could polish some questions that I have had, and you know, expand our view about what the raw material, the law of one raw material is.
Okay. Well, let me give a little bit of introduction to myself because people may not know me. People who are on your channel or anything may not know me. I was born in New York City. I am 53 years old right now, and basically, I would say in high school, from the age of about 15, I started reading Eastern religion texts in translation. The Dhammapada, original speakings of Gautama Buddha, I Ching, Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching, a little bit of Patanjali, Yoga Sutras. Basically, because I had some kind of vague despair in my mind, living in New York City, living in America, living in this world, finding not many people that I could respect, or I felt they were of great wisdom, or I was searching for a way out of some kind of deep angst that I couldn't really understand, and only many years later, as it cleared, could know, what my problems were. What my problem was, it was basically a kind of early age spiritual crisis. So people talk about midlife crisis. I finished my midlife crisis at 25, and so from 15 to 25 was my early midlife crisis. And so I started reading these texts in translation and romanticized the life of a wandering forest yogi. And that's what I was, that's the mindset I went into college with. Then fate took its course, and I met a man named Jay, who was an older student in Oberlin. I was in Oberlin University in 1980, Oberlin College. And he had lived in Sri Lanka as a monk for some time. And he taught a winter recess course on Buddhism, using primarily what the Buddha taught, Walpola Rahula, early Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Vipassana tradition, and teaching us meditation, breath meditation, and brought in some heavy hitters from Japanese Zen and Thai Theravadan temples to give us teachings during the month of the winter recess, where that was a kind of student-led class. And that was the winter of 1980. And at that point, I learned meditation, what's called anapanasati, breath meditation, mindfulness of breath practice. The earliest and most authentic, the earliest teaching of Buddhism in terms of meditation. Watch your breath, mindfulness of the breath process. And that was exactly what I needed, and I threw myself into practice for 2 years and lived for a short time in the summers, monasteries, Zen temples in America, and then went back to college. And in my third year, I dropped out in the first month, and then began a real exodus journey from monastery to monastery and back to college, and then finally I finished my BA in 1987. So I came in 1980, and I left college in 1987. It took me 7 years to get the BA, and then 5 years to get a PhD. But I lived in Thailand a short time, and in India, in Japanese and Korean Zen temples in America. Did hours and hours of practice a day alone, and made my mother crazy with worry, and wasn't really sure if I was going to be a monk or live a normal life. And that was a response to deep suffering, but a kind of spiritual awareness that there's no limit to the potential of mind or self or the inner being or what we really are. That Ross says self is a being of infinite worth. For me, I had a kind of deep level self-trust where I knew I was not well. I really had a lot of anger to society and despair that I'd ever find a way forward, or not really a way, but a place in this world. And only later I came to realize that those were characteristics of wanderers. And so I went to different monasteries, I did a lot of meditation, went through Dark Night of the Soul, and a sort of deep blockage, kind of knotted fear, but really knotted pain, deep angst, was coughed up and out. And the mind emerged without self-conflict, without any significant self-conflict, meaning not fighting myself. And I hadn't fought myself so much before, but I really didn't know why I was so upset living in this world. And after years of deep practice, up to age 25, at that time, much became clear and much became very well. And then I had many out-of-body experiences and other dimensions. And because I had followed breath during meditation for years, I had some sense of what was a fantasy concocted by me and what was a multidimensional, subtle reality appearing to consciousness. Different. So my basis to the raw material is, pretty hardcore Theravada Buddhism, monasticism, and rejection of worldly matters. In 1985, I went to Naropa Institute and got my BA in Buddhist Studies and Psychology. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche was the leader of Naropa Institute in Colorado, Boulder, and then contacted the raw material. And so I've been studying the raw material since about '87, almost 30 years, and doing meditation for 35 years, and teaching Buddhism, raw material metaphysics, transpersonal psychology for 25 years, since 1990. Since the 20 years, since 1995. I'm doing counseling. I have a master's in integral counseling and a PhD in East-West psychology from California Institute of Integral Studies, CIIS, San Francisco. The PhD is in '92, and my dissertation was the basis of my first book, which is called From Elsewhere, Being E.T. in America, which was basically kind of ethnographic research, qualitative, not quantitative, dissertation originally, studying the culture, subculture of people who come to know that they are wanderers or they're from elsewhere. And I interviewed 25 people and talked about walk-ins and wanderers and gave my opinions about it all. But at that time, I had already known that that was true for myself. So after a few years of pretty deep meditation and out-of-body experiences, which were pretty clear and potent, I knew I'm a wanderer. So I knew that before age 30, by age 27 or so. before 1990. And so that was the only thing relevant to me at the time in 92 to write my thesis on, 91. There was nothing really, I knew it. And I mean, I basically felt like I did what I needed to do by age 30. And if I had died and left the body at age 30, it would have been just fine for me, because I really felt I got over the main misery or main karmic obstruction of the first part of my life, what turns out to be the first part. So then I wrote the dissertation, got the PhD, turned that into the first book in 1995 from Elsewhere, published by St. Martin's? I forgot, actually. Yeah, anyway, all these publishers, these New York publishers are real scoundrels. I've had many scandalous publishers in my day. So the second book, called Universal Vision, Soul Evolution and Cosmic Plan, published in the year 2000, self-published. And then I started teaching in 95, so 20 years. And the book was published into Japan. I did teaching in Japan on and off for 15 years, 10 years basically, 10 or 12, and learned a lot there. And have been doing, I do personal sessions, and I have about 300 YouTube talks now, which are from Skype talks, weekly Skype groups for the last 4 years. So those 300 talks on YouTube include PDF compilations of the raw material, such as Healing and Balance, Wanderer's Notes, Sexuality and Spiritual Path, Cosmic Plan, and ET Earth History, which Raw provides also, Contact History for the last 750,000 years. So that's all my thing. Lots of information, but very much in accord with the raw material. My personal emphasis is on focus on principles. What's really important. There's a difference between transient information and principles of soul evolution, Ra talks about. And so that's my personal interest. And that's why I don't talk about my personal details of the history so much, and little things that I think are not important. The key is to know the ways of self-transformation, soul progression. And there's a lot to know. And then one needs to apply it in daily life. So that's the introduction. Do you want to start? Maybe you should explain to people the two areas, the two parts of questioning that you proposed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what I proposed that Scott expounded on was what we know as the matrix, or the cosmic matrix, and the other aspect was, ascension. We all have this interest in figuring out how do we ascend. So those are the two areas that I have most interest in, Scott. That's why I thought that would be interesting. So the question is, how do we get into defining what the cosmic matrix is?
Okay, well, your two parts are defining. Right. Well, the two parts that you proposed, one was defining the matrix, and the second one is ascension. And we talked about the terms cosmic matrix and social matrix. In the movie The Matrix, which I think is very important as a symbolic presentation of a lot of the metaphysics of human incarnation and social life. In that movie, in this trilogy, the Matrix is a false virtual reality that is associated with, simply the perceptual mechanism and electrical processing, the brain-body system, and it's a kind of shroud or a veiled it provides a veiled, illusory reality that people believe in, but isn't so. And it was created by evil agents and the architect, and a very Gnostic kind of situation, like the agents are the archons and the architect is the demiurge, exactly as the Christian Gnostics talked about 2,000 years ago. So the architect in the Matrix series can be seen as the demiurge, the one who's the leader of the archons, like agents and Agent Smith and all the other agents listening. This, in my view, it presents something what I'm calling the social matrix or the human matrix. But then there's a cosmic matrix, another veil, which Ra talks about, which is basically the separation of 3D physical in our body awareness and consciousness into what we call a conscious mind and an unconscious. The conscious mind is basically the five senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing, the five sense realms of spheres of sense perception. And then the intellect is six, which includes, logic and thought formation and memory and imagination, and you can call intuition maybe, or creativity. These five physical senses and mental consciousness sense provide, are the feed or the main sources of what we call conscious mind experience, our personal experience. That is the formation of personal experience. That separation between what we're easily aware of, the five senses and the intellect, conscious mind, and the deeper mind, or, all the things we don't know, perceiving multidimensionally, perceiving atomic movement, perceiving energy fields, perceiving our origin and our destination, understanding even what you did yesterday. Do you remember what you did minute by minute yesterday? Of course you don't. I don't. Why? Because it's fallen into the unconscious, the subconscious. Why? Because that's the structure of mind in mind-body-spirit complex in third density physical, according to the Logos, the creator of the seven-dimensional system, according to Ra. So, in the Ra material, they talk about the veil in mind. That this is, so we'll start with this, the cosmic matrix, or the veil made by God, made by the creator of light in the Ra material. Mm-hmm. And so the view is just that to enhance soul evolution, to be a kind of irritant or a catalyst or an accelerant to personal seeking, personal development of what we are. Right? Ra said, the purpose of incarnation, the whole purpose of life, the purpose of incarnation is the evolution of mind, body, spirit. Very simple. So the purpose of life is a very easy question to answer. And the four purposes for wanderers living on earth, Ra explained very clearly to understand the general, the tetrad of four purposes for wanderers incarnating, and then the specifics of our personal karmic challenges and program catalysts from higher self before birth that each person, creates for themselves more or less. That is the personal life purpose. So there's the purpose of life for each individual, which is what's difficult for them. There's the purpose of life for wanderers as a whole. These are not difficult to answer. Not the whole answer, but we can start. Likewise, the purpose for this veil in mind is to encourage beings to seek. Ra said, where there is no misunderstanding, there are no potentials for understanding. It's a typical yin-yang kind of Taoist view. Being in this body, which is, we're very weak and frail, and human body, it's very delicate, really, different than a hippopotamus body or gorilla body, kind of big and tough. Human body is made somewhat frail, so that humans will depend on each other, so that humans can more readily evolve themselves as catalyst for soul evolution, created by the source of light in the seven-dimensional system in which we're living. And so it's the Logos, which in Greek means word. Heraclitus talked about it. I talk about Heraclitus. Ra talks about the Logos as a kind of aspect of the one infinite creator that can be a solar being and manage and make the laws for solar systems. And so we're talking about evolution of souls from the level of, what? Minerals, plants, animals, second density, human 3, and beyond. So, if you really want to explain all of this, the matrix, you have to explain soul evolution through the 7 dimensions. So that's,
And
we're through six.
going back to
But
what you
anyway,
just said.
yeah, the veil in mind is the bulk of what we don't know is by design, and anybody can increase consciousness and make the unconscious conscious for sure. But it's just part of the setup for this dimension, for the mind awareness, mind consciousness, for the formation of experience or personal experience in this dimension, that there's so much we're unconscious of. And it's not done by the evil negatives. It's simply part of the equipment, the setup of the hardware in 3D physical body. And there's nothing wrong with it. And one can become a Buddha also. And one can become fully enlightened and have full development of the 7 chakras and omniscience too. Not that I have, but it's totally possible. So it's a veil, and wanderers have a hard time with it. Like, why can't I control my heartbeat? Why can't I never eat if I don't want to? Why do I have to sleep? Why does the body have these limitations? Why is there so much I don't remember about myself? I don't know about myself. I can't answer about myself. Why does humanity have so much confusion? They can't agree on any metaphysics, really. Why? That's much of that comes from the veil in mind in 3D physical. That's part of the equipment and the law, the ways that this 7-dimensional situation was set up by the Creator.
And sadly enough, all those items, what they do is nothing more than create more disharmony. The why. Going back to something you said that was interesting to me was the irritant or the catalyst. One of the catalysts that we take most for granted, we have the most problems with, is relationships. And yet it's probably one of the catalysts that it's most fruitful. And so many of us, they have this sort of turn a blind eye to certain relationships and say, I just don't want to deal with it. But at the same time, it's probably one of the most beneficial aspects of being able to do a little soul searching and seeking. Anything you'd like to add to that regard before we move on?
Do you have a question on that?
Meaning how is there a particular way that an individual can extract from a relationship and turn it into a seeking mode and really ascertain some gains from the friction taking place in any one given relationship?
Well, I mean, the root of healing and balance, which Rod discusses as the main work, the initial foundation of spiritual transformation or soul progression in this dimension, is what we call healing and balance. The principles of healing and balance basically need to be applied, or the principles of self-transformation would need to be applied by either individual to themselves in that relationship, which means first moving to a kind of unconditional allowing or welcoming or willingness to experience just what's in front of me or what's happening within me. Yes, I'm very unhappy. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm sad. Yes, I'm confused. Yes, I want to know what's happening, but I don't. Yes, I will keep seeking to know. Yes, it seems my partner is being unfair. Yes, all of these are all my emotional processes, and I want to understand it, or I want to heal it and make it better. Okay, now, what can I do next? Well, one then needs to apply deeper inquiry and understanding. How did this come to be? Do I know? Can I look into my partner and remember and understand what's been happening and how we got here where we are today? Where am I at fault? Where is the partner at fault? What have I contributed to this situation? What has the partner contributed? Do I think he, she, my partner is honest? Does it seem that they're being fair? Does it seem that, does it, what I think is going on, is it really what's going on? I got so upset. Is it because my partner is talking in a bad way, unfair, or harmful way, or not? Maybe I'm oversensitive. What's that all about? So it's a kind of self-inquiry, examining, allowing first the open experience of what's going on, and then looking at oneself and looking at one's partner and taking responsibility, coming to understand how it came to be, and acknowledging that, how can I do better? How can I improve myself? Well, I should be careful of my temper. I should speak more clearly. I should speak up, even, or I should ask more questions. Or, um, yes, I've been unreasonable. Or, yes, I did act unfairly, and I regret it, and I'm sorry, and I hope you forgive me, and I'll try better. Anything like that. But also, I'm going to tell my partner what I think very honestly. So these are the principles of healing and balance. Bringing basically love, 4th chakra, wisdom, 5th chakra, and balance, 6th chakra, to the field of the relationship. And, first love is self, and that's unconditional acceptance or willingness to feel what I'm feeling. My body sensations and emotions, and my mind thinking and opinions and beliefs. But not assume that everything I think is happening. Not assume that I understand it fully, because I know I don't. And taking responsibility. If I'm upset emotionally, that's my problem. However, my partner may also be acting out of good faith. And so calling a spade, using discernment. And so, it's a very open question. It's like how to use a relationship for spiritual growth. Well, that's a, 10-hour discussion. But it's acknowledging that I co-created this situation. And it doesn't mean I'm bad. But I might have acted poorly in ways that I regret, and I should say I'm sorry. And I also acted very clearly or in kindness and harmony, truly, also. And also, it seems that my partner has been unfair or has certain patterns that are unhelpful to our relationship and understanding. And I think we need to talk about it and try to make understanding and harmony together. But the person can't do everything. You can only take care of your own side. Mm-hmm. You can't take care of their side. And so taking responsibility and being honest with our own emotional process and allowing ourselves to think whatever you want to think, but to acknowledge that maybe I'm not quite clear. Maybe I'm mistaken in some of my thinking. And then the willingness to work together with the partner. And when that's rebuffed, the willingness to know what that's all about and then do the work inside. It's not necessary to hold a grudge, but it's also not possible to make an excellent relationship with just everyone. It is not possible because there isn't compatibility with everyone. Yeah. There really isn't. And so it's not possible to have a perfect, beautiful relationship with anyone. There's something called compatibility. Right. Anyway.
Now, when it comes to the matrix, for instance, how it in and of itself has an influence over how we understand our relationships, because the actual veil and the illusion, I would, from my understanding, has it creates its own dynamic on understanding, okay, well, yes, I'm here and I'm having this relationship, but there's also layers that I don't understand. So how does that make matters even harder to get a sense of clarity?
Well, I don't think that it makes matters harder. It's simply the metaphysical basis of all that we don't understand, which is a lot.
Yeah.
We don't understand why we chose the person from a metaphysical perspective. Like, what am I trying to learn? What inner growth do I really seek from a soul level, which is the purpose for which I chose this person or karmically we got together? We don't know the subtle array of higher self or deep mind or soul spiritual purposes or values that are present in that relationship. We know maybe a little. I can learn to be patient. I can learn to be more open. I can learn to, cooperate or compromise or something. But we have a very shallow understanding of what are the benefits that I may gain in terms of soul evolution and self-development by my choice of this partner. So we don't know that. We don't know their mind so fully and where they're coming from. We don't know our blockages and what, our areas of confusion. We may not understand that. So this is all the result of the veil in mind, the veil of forgetting, the split between conscious mind and unconscious. That's, all that we don't understand for self, for other, for higher purpose, and for the ways of making things better. People don't even know how to heal and do balance. We don't know. We're all trying to learn. We're all trying to practice. So all of this we don't know. And all of that not knowing is the result of this cosmic matrix or the veil of forgetting in 3D physical. Before we were born, we knew. After we leave the physical body, we'll know. But during the physical incarnation, it's just part of the plan. And so everything we don't know is the result of the matrix, more or less, so that, the veil in mind. Now, it's basically, you can say, be gentle with yourself when you realize how much you don't know. Be gentle and kindly to yourself and your partner, acknowledging our situation here, where both people have a very limited awareness of the deep principles or wisdom in the situation. That's just our behind looking through a veil darkly, this kind of thing, through a glass darkly. We just it's just like Plato's cave, That's the situation, and it's Ross said, understanding is not of your density. Understanding is not of your density. It's not of third density. It's associated with heart. However, we can seek to open heart and develop wisdom in each interaction with each person, no matter who they are, but we should simply just seek to, keep understanding, keep developing. Ross said, the process of 3D incarnation as a whole, or soul evolution as a whole, is basically understanding the 7 chakras. And so that means self-understanding. So that's the same Delphic, Delphi oracle saying, know thyself. So as above, so below. As within, so without. If you know yourself really deeply, you will eventually know totality, because there's no separate, there's no impenetrable barrier between self and the field or the environment or creation or all. So the veil is just what we have to work with, and acknowledging that we don't know very much, and that's okay. And so, I personally understand that everything I understand is a drop in the bucket compared to what is possible to understand, and what I will approach that understanding after death, after leaving this body. So I think that a lot of New Age people are a little, some people are proud, and some people have made it an ego endeavor to try to understand everything and make the most full, complete, complex theories of everything. But actually, in my humble opinion, what we know here, unless you're a Buddha, unless you have multiple penetrations of nirvana, and the deathless, and the cessation of becoming, and unbinding in Buddhism, unless you've had multiple penetrations of contact with intelligent infinity, or contact with infinity, unless a person has had that, they should just assume that their understanding is quite limited. And there's nothing wrong with that. The purpose of human life is not to become, a scholar on infinite metaphysics or an infinite knowing person. The purpose of this dimension is to learn the ways of love. And so that can very well be done in relationship, but both people have to know the principles of love, what the green ray heart chakra is all about. So anyway, that's a basic discussion of the cosmic matrix or the logoic matrix. And then the social matrix is a different matter. That's closer to the movie, The Matrix, where there's an artificial um, shroud put over people, or kind of related to brain chemistry and neuroelectrical signals and all that, where we have a false view of human society, and that has been done by Illuminati and the Merovingians, and that's very true actually. And they're guided by Orion 40 negative, of course, higher dimensional negative ET, of course, is the eye in the sky above the capstone, the unfinished capstone. The unfinished capstone is the elite portion of the Illuminati, which are basically bloodlines and trace back to Egypt and Atlantis if they can. The above the unfinished capstone, of course, is the eye in the sky, the single eye, which of course is 4D negative Orion, service to self, extraterrestrial groups that have been here from, from before human civilization started. Because they're older groups, they're in 4D negative. Nothing strange about that. And so the deceit, the raft, the massive bulwark of lies and deceptions and false history and media propaganda and consensus, manufacturing consensus, and today it's endless lies. The mainstream media is just a ministry of propaganda globally, generally, mainstream media. I mean, smart people are coming to realize that.
And going
that's
around
the
it.
social matrix.
And going around the media.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, life on Earth is not as the mainstream media tells you. And human history is not quite only what's told in history books. History is written by the victors.
So thank God from that aspect we're awakening a little bit.
Yes, we're awakening a little bit. But you see, to really understand these two veils or matrices, and to really have a strong foundation in penetrating both of them, people have to understand that this incarnation is like a lacunae. It's like the space within parentheses, in an endless sentence. It's a phase of our infinite progression. It's a phase of the flow, the flow of infinite experience. So we have lived before this incarnation. We will live after this body falls away, and the nature of the limitations to the quality of experience, the quality of life, or how well we are within this incarnation, within this temporary phase of our infinite existence. The limitations come with the program, or with the decision to make this incarnation. We all decided to be here. We all decided to put ourselves into this body in this world, where this body-mind-spirit complex or body-related incarnation has this fundamental limitation in mind in terms of limited consciousness, limited perceptions. And we're living in this world of mixed polarity or service to self leadership that is a constant lying factory, deception. The powers and principalities, they lie because there's no truth in them. Absolutely. We chose to be here. If you want to penetrate the human matrix or the Illuminati type matrix, you very much can. Just read and read and read and think and listen and ponder and consider. And you'll discover far more truth than you might want. In terms of the cosmic matrix, the veil in mind, that requires spiritual practice and study of a different sort. Not mainly outer study, but inner study. What is the cause? What is the nature of all my pain? What are the causes of all my pain? Pain in body, pain, confusion in mind, spiritual doubt, essential self-doubt, whatever. What is the cause? What are the causes? How has it come to be that any pain and limitation in body, any pain, limitation, and confusion in mind is my experience now?
And that I created
How did I
it.
co-create that?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, like the Seth material says, you create your own reality. So, I mean, if people don't want to take responsibility for their incarnation and their body conditions and their mind conditions, that's just fine. If you want, you know, if you don't believe in reincarnation and you don't believe in karma and you don't believe in higher dimensions, that's just fine. But you've betrayed your soul. you have just rejected yourself, your greater self, which is fine. Go right ahead.
And you turn around and do another,
But,
what, 26,000 years of
if the person
karmic?
really wants to dissolve the veil in mind, well, a person doesn't have to believe metaphysics to be a virtuous person. There are some people who are very virtuous and moral and ethical and really kind and really selfless and really giving and really good, but they just don't know metaphysics. And they admit, I can't believe it because there's no proof. But I believe in virtue and goodness. That kind of person surely can graduate or harvest or make the grade or develop themselves sufficiently to move right along. Because the purpose here is not for the development of wisdom. The purpose of 3D is to learn the ways of love, to move from third chakra to fourth. That's it. Now, if you want to, though, go beyond the limitations of consciousness that are inbuilt to the body and brain we're using in 3D physical, the cosmic matrix, you simply need to do deep spiritual practice as as the fountainhead of deep and effective healing and balance. You have to really heal your emotional pain and wrong views and self-conflicts and very honestly assess oneself and move to virtue and wisdom and balance. And then do intensive spiritual practice in a tradition that's for real and can really lead the mind beyond limitations. So it's all possible. So that's what's required to pierce the veil. And they're different, So one veil is pierced by reading of alternative news and alternative history and revisionist history and listen, let everybody have a hearing and consider it and find your own answers. And the cosmic matrix or veil is pierced really by intensive, from very deep and sincere and frank self-understanding, self-love, self-healing, balance, development of virtue, development of discernment, and then intensive spiritual practice that activates sixth chakra.
So then the question is kind of seeing where we left off. You were talking about piercing the veil.
Right.
And so to that notion, I want to touch on how is it that what is it that we're doing? I mean, obviously we're doing many things to prolong this illusion, but what is the main thing that we're doing that we're contributing to actually being counterproductive? We're expanding, or we're allowing the illusion to continue rather than recognizing that this is somewhat of a Machiavellic, and perhaps Machiavellic is not the correct word, but there is obviously some intentionality by the by the forces that be in prolonging the status quo. So,
well, okay, you're talking here about the social matrix,
correct.
or akin to the movie, the the Matrix movie,
which you were using as a metaphor, correct?
Yeah, which is not a bad metaphor, because it's basically saying what you are told by the mainstream media and so-called human authorities and history books and orthodox sources and authoritarian sources is a deceptive narrative, a false landscape of lies and half-truths and manipulations, so as to keep people ignorant of the plans and intentions and activities of service-to-self leadership and off-planet service-to-self groups, like Ra would say, Orion Empire, 4D negative. Mm-hmm. Now, to the extent that people are afraid to confront truth in general, to the extent that people have a weak stomach for bitter and sour and rancid, painful truths that we react to with painful response, truths, realities of life or history or situations or ourselves that we hate or we think we can't handle or we feel fear and or vulnerability regarding, to the extent that we can't get beyond our reactions, our emotional reactivity to truth, then people will stay in the social matrix. To the extent that people, you see, the thing about piercing the social matrix is that what's being hidden is evil. It's ugly. It's heinous. It's wicked. It's bad. It's ugly and unpleasant to look at, and we have natural heart shock or heart pain to see it clearly. Yet, only by seeing that clearly and then looking at the causes of it and determining for ourselves why is this happening, whose agenda does it serve, what agenda is it serving and leading to, what's going on here metaphysically, also in terms of soul progression and positive-negative polarity. To the extent that the person is not willing to look into all that, they'll stay under the veil or in the human matrix. And so people perpetuate it by a very understandable aversion to that which is evil and ugly and wicked and heinous and complicated. And so you have to develop a strong stomach if you want to look into, what evil and wickedness and ugliness is all about. I mean, the left-hand path, service self, Illuminati leadership, the highest levels, involves very deep pathology, psychological pathology, very hatred of love, hatred of beauty, hatred of goodness, hatred of freedom or independence for others, a sadism, an attachment to pain and blood and flesh and matter and aggrandizement and all these low vibrations. And so, to the extent that we have lower chakra blockages, we may get stuck in the contemplation of all that lower frequency or lower chakra activity. All those realities that are associated with lower chakra blockage, because the negative path maintains their first, second, third, fourth chakra blockages and is involved in control and domination and deception and power manipulations and all that. So to the extent that we're unclear or still blocked emotionally or afraid or feel vulnerable or we feel weak and feel that I can't handle it or don't value ourselves and think I'm too stupid, I can't understand it, to the extent that we're stuck that way, then we remain in the human matrix. So the antidote to being trapped in the human matrix is self-transformation, is spiritual growth, is deep self-healing and honesty and release of what we don't need. So self-transformation with love and wisdom, self-love and understanding, wisdom and discernment and honesty, that's the cure for remaining stuck and under the veil of the human matrix.
Yeah, and then what's unfortunate is so many have basically thrown the towel in, just sort of raise their arms and say, I give up, I can't do this, it's too hard, when the reality is that it's just that extra mile that would have gotten you to the finish line, and being able to recognize that that the light at the end of the tunnel is just on the other side. Had you just gone a few, just a little further.
Right.
But it seems that we've become very complacent in that respect.
Yeah. Well, I think the complacency of humanity or individuals, to some extent, is based on unfulfilled dependency needs of childhood. It's natural, normal, it's healthy. It's part of the plan that a baby, a newborn, an infant, a young child, a middle young child up to age 5, 10, whatever, is dependent on parents. Like they were dependent. The fetus is dependent on the mother in the womb. The infant is dependent on the mother. The toddler, the young child, is dependent on mother and father maybe, and for support. But most parents don't love well. So most people came out of childhood being unable to depend on their parents as they should have in those years when they were that dependent, and therefore grow out of it and build a healthy sense of self based on feeling loved and valued and protected and cared for. So the sense of self is damaged from the insufficient loving and care of the parents, normally. And then the person grows into adulthood with unrecognized, unmet dependency needs and complexes from early childhood that they then project onto authority or their partner or something, and lose, they're seeking mommy and daddy. And so that's projected onto the state, or to the corporation, or to one's boss, or the military hierarchy, or the religion, the priest, or one's career, or one's wife or partner or husband, or something. And
it's the take care of me mentality.
Yeah, I deserve to be. I deserve to be taken care of without responsibility for autonomy. Because I never got it, you should give it to me now. I mean, why do people get involved in relationship in the first place, in intimacy, partnership? I want to get from you what I can't obviously get from me alone. So there's it's distortion that leads to intimacy, generally. Now, there are people who are very well and also involved in intimacy and partnership. But to the extent that we don't heal our, infantility, or our dependency needs, or our unwillingness to really take responsibility for ourselves and our life and our well-being moment by moment, to the extent that the person doesn't feel that they deserve what they get, this is not fair, it's not fair, you did it, or you should give to me, you should be what I want you to be, the world should be as I imagine it ought to be, ideally. To the extent that we stay with all that childishness, which is just unreasonability, that's all.
Expectation, yeah.
Well, it's unreasonable expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, if I drop my, my plate, I should expect it to fall on the floor and crash. But if I enter a relationship and I feel so wonderful, and I expect that my partner feels the same way, or that their feeling never changes, or that they have time for me whenever I want, that's unreasonable. If you expect people with lots of money and power to care about people who don't have money and power, you're foolish. And so what is the psychodynamic basis of dependency and authoritarianism, seeking authority, or seeking to become authoritarian, seeking to control or be controlled, seeking to follow what you're told or tell others what to do. What are the psychological dynamics that are the basis of that? Well, that's first, second, third chakra blockage, obviously. Insufficient love and wisdom and self-understanding and self-regard and true self-appreciation, of course. So the basis of all of that is unrecognized psychological wounding and conflicts that the person has been unwilling to confront within themselves, because it's too painful or too shameful, or they think they're too stupid, or it's too complicated, or they just don't want to deal with it. And then they end up, being easy prey and an easy mark for clever deceivers. Mm-hmm. And that's, really quite normal today. And but honestly, it's always been that way. I mean, 500 years ago, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, people were not like sharp, clear, knowing everything or so deeply beyond veils and things, But the question is about really seeking. Do you seek or not? And if you think that life is only one incarnation, you only live once, there's no afterlife, there's no karma, there are no higher dimensions, there's no soul, there's no schemed evolution. You just have a body and you die and it's all over, and everything is about material life and personal relationships and feelings and body, and that's it. That miserable mind is very comfortable remaining in ignorance or in a compromised position without seeking. And the opposite is a metaphysical sensitivity that recognizes, well, maybe these ideas about karma and multiple lifetimes and reincarnation and higher dimensions and higher self and God and cosmic purpose and things like that, maybe it's true. And yet I don't understand it, and I think it's important to me to understand it and how to make my life better and develop myself. That's important. If the person knows that that's important, then they will by and by keep seeking their own growth. You don't have to belong to a religion, you don't have to belong to any philosophy, but a sense that I am more than this body and mind. This universe or this life, my life, is more than just what I see in front of me. There's something greater going on here. And I wish to know it. And I wish to be really well. And then that person will not simply eat what they're fed or believe what they're told, and will become a free thinker. But for many people, they're scared to be a free thinker, and they haven't developed their mind much, and therefore they actually cannot think very well. They can't discern. And in Buddhism, Gautama said, in terms of what's the karma that leads to discernment, some people are more discerning than others, obviously. Some people are not tricked by things, and some people are shocked when they discover what really is going on. The one who's not shocked may be one who has more discernment than the one who was shocked because they never saw it coming. How is it that people get more discernment or are of more discernment naturally? Well, according to Gautama Buddha, is that they consistently have asked the wise and the worthy what's true and what's false, what's good and what's unhelpful, what conduces to my long-term welfare and benefit and what doesn't, what's valuable and what's not. And then they've taken it in and considered for themselves how they think about it, and they were seeking value. They had the value that knowing and self-development is essential to well-being. My well-being, my experience here is rooted in is the degree to which I have wisdom and understanding and virtue and purity in some sense, and that the quality of my life depends on what I make of myself, not simply what I get and hold and keep and my social position. That real well-being comes from inner transformation, is the product of an attitude or the way of mind, the way this mind is. And that's the basis of spiritual path, and that's what will lead people to penetrate both of these veils beyond the tissue of lies of human leadership and orthodoxy and authoritarianism, and through the veil in the 3D physical mind brain itself that's associated with how much we don't know. But when spiritual development really is proceeding nicely, one is certainly more open to intuition and direct knowing and gnosis and knowing without needing to think and logic it out. So that both veils are pierced ultimately by the person's commitment to learning and self-development and making something valuable of themselves. And that would naturally include a desire to be of benefit to others. That just comes naturally. That doesn't have to be my main value. If you're good to yourself, you'll naturally be good to others. If your goodness to self is truly heart-related. If it's real heart-centered goodness and being true to yourself, that heart-centered authenticity naturally is of service to all.
And you've created a really nice segue there.
So thank you for interviewing me, Denise, and I appreciate your questions, which are really very pointed and insightful. I hope we can talk again, and thanks for today. Take good care. Okay, good night.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Good night.
Bye-bye. So the question is, how do we transition from the veil to ascension? That's almost like polar opposites.
Well, I wouldn't frame the goal or destination or the work as going from the veil to ascension. The veil isn't the problem. The problem is lack of wisdom, lack of love, lack of seeking, lack of follow-through. The problem is not the veil. That's just part of the equipment, but it's not a fast barrier to the ardent seeker, right? I mean, anybody can discover what Illuminati forces don't want people to know regarding certain areas of knowledge. Not everything, because some things are really deep, but anybody who wants to know can put the time in and read widely, and then contemplate deeply, and integrate, and come to some conclusions. Anybody who wants, if they seek more consistently and in balance long enough, can expand the realm of the conscious mind to include direct knowing, what we call intuition or gnosis, direct seeing without the need for thought, and great wisdom, discernment, understanding, and awareness of higher dimensions and activation of higher chakra bodies, energy bodies. Anybody can do all of that. The question is, how much do you want it? If you really want it, you'll remember what the principles are and get with it. Study, meditation, and service. These are the foundations. So study that which it seems to be essential, and the principles of spiritual path, transformation, universal principles, understanding of the 7 chakras, whatever, as much as one can. Keep reading and come to understanding. Don't get stuck in certain opinions, and keep open mind, but trust yourself. And discover, find, and embark on a spiritual practice. A regular, daily, surrender to the technique, whatever tradition you're coming from, Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist, this, that, the other thing. But the practice will only take you as far as that vehicle can go, and as much as the person sincerely throws themselves into it and wants it. I mean, you got to just be clear. What do you want? If you know what you want, you keep seeking the ways of achieving it until you achieve it. That's all. That's not very complicated. But so there's no reason to, wonder what to do. The questions are, what do you want? And do you really want it? And if you really want it, we do keep making efforts until we get it. Mm-hmm. I want to eat because I think it's okay to eat lunch. So I will do whatever I can that I think is reasonable to get my lunch. And then I will eat it. It's very simple. Same thing with transformation. Ascension is, basically the planetary dimensional shift process. Time of global shift means the end of the cycle of evolution at the human level on this planet at this time. Schoolhouse Earth, as a school for souls who've not yet learned to love, is transforming into a Schoolhouse Earth for souls who already value heart chakra love. Maybe you want to get some water there. So the school for souls who've not yet learned to love is transforming to be the fourth dimensional school for souls who value love and goodness and virtue and ethics and kindness and beauty and balance and honesty and truth and wellness for all. May all beings be well and happy. So people who are centered in that will inherit the earth. Sometimes yeah, my hard talking is upsetting your throat.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry. Some kind of tickle in my throat, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a Blu-ray agitation. Well, I'm just saying, I don't frame a personal life purpose or our life purpose in terms of the movement from veil, hidden under veil to global or personal ascension. The goal, first of all, is to clearly know what you want. If people want to just sit around and watch old movies every day, go right ahead. And whatever you do will have consequences. And if it's really valuable, you'll get something from it. And we'll do it for as long as you're getting something valuable from it. And then the mind has changed, and perhaps you no longer find value in it, then you move to something else. So Ra said the purpose, the proper role, ROLE, the proper role for the entity in third density is to experience all things desired. To experience all things desired means to go for it. Go to experience what you desire. Now, if the desire involves harm for other or infringement of their free will, Ra said better to experience it imaginatively and make sure you don't hurt anyone or yourself. But you can play it through in mind and actually move out of the attachment. Because desire is attachment. Desire leads to suffering. Yes, indeedy, said Gautama. Very true. But Ra said desires of one kind basically lead to desires of a higher kind when one has distilled the love light from them, gotten what you can in terms of meaning and value and learning and desired experience from whatever you're engaging in. So, knowing your desires, being really honest and frank with yourself, not being afraid of your unconscious, not avoiding important truths, and continuing your own learning with discernment and in balance, and hopefully bringing some benefit or being kindly and good to the people around you. And by that, lower chakra blockages can be released progressively, and one will develop green, blue, and indigo, meaning 4th, 5th, 6th chakra, meaning the ways of love and kindness, virtue and goodness, and wisdom, discernment, knowing, clarity, and balance, awareness of unity, will, and true self-appreciation. So, the antidote to the veil, the veil in mind, cosmic veil, and the veil thrown down by Illuminati and negative humans, The antidote to those veils is clearly simply activation of green, blue, indigo. Fourth ray, fifth ray, sixth ray, fourth chakra, fifth chakra, sixth chakra, development of all the qualities of love and heart, all the qualities of mind and wisdom, clarity, and all the qualities associated with true being and balance and the unified self, or appreciation of unity and wholeness and multidimensional sensitivity. All the qualities of those three chakras are the antidote to being under the veil, and that's a personal ascension. And whatever point that the planet is on its timeline is not that important, because we're doing what we believe in, and we're living the way. We're on the way with a capital W, daily, day by day, with clarity and balance as much as we can. And when we fall down, we dust ourselves up and pick ourselves up and keep going. So that's how I formulate life purpose, or the work. That's the work is basically to clear lower chakra blockages and activate higher centers and balance and appreciate reality as is, as fully as possible. And then the planet will make its ascension or dimensional shift, and the meek shall inherit the earth. And as far as I know, Earth will go into fourth density positive, where those who are negatively oriented will be elsewhere, and those who are inadequately centered in love and goodness will also go elsewhere. And that's the three-way split, and they will reincarnate on other 3D planets to continue their self-determined learning. And that's the end of that. And wanderers will go home. Most of the wanderers, the fifth, sixth density wanderers will go home. And the fourth density wanderers, some of whom are double-bodied, nothing to do with hybridization, nothing to do with genetic thing. The genetics is totally irrelevant to me and my understanding of the principles of soul evolution. You asked on the page, how will ascension, let me pull this up again, how will ascension affect will the sun have an effect in activating our multidimensional or 12-strand DNA? I really disdain. Don't take it personally, but I don't disdain you. But I disdain emphasis on DNA and 12-strand or any strand DNA discussions, genetics. As a famous black funk man said, "Save your mind, your ass will follow."
Okay, that's a good analogy.
I mean, George Clinton of Funkadelic, Parliament Funkadelic, he has the final word on that, I believe. If you save your mind, meaning you bring love and wisdom into consciousness and develop love and wisdom consciously with self-examination and looking closely at your life and the people around you and the institutions and situations of society around you, and bring love, acceptance, and wisdom, clarity, discernment to that, and develop an understanding, then you will end up with the appropriate DNA that will be valuable or needed for your next incarnative or future experience situation. If the person, you see, DNA is simply a manifestation of the formation of the etheric field, the etheric body called the form maker body. This is my understanding. Ra talks about the form maker body, the body that makes the form of matter or body in the material world, being a sixth chakra body or energy field associated with sixth chakra, indigo chakra, third eye, associated with a level of higher self, and after death, eventually people rest in the form maker body, and that would lead to the next incarnation. Now, if the person has done significant work in consciousness, in development of love, wisdom, and release of blockages, personal complexes and psychological wounding and conflicts and wrong view and all that, if the person has done all that kind of work during the incarnation, then when they're resting in the form maker body after death, they will be qualified for incarnation in a higher dimensional body. That's called harvestability. Graduation to 4D positive. If they're a wanderer, they may just go home. But the DNA that the person ends up with is the product of the form maker body, the sixth chakra body, the indigo energy field associated with sixth ray, sixth chakra. And that is the result, that is the cumulative result of all lower chakras development. It's related to basically what comes out, what the form maker body makes for the next incarnation, or the DNA of one's future body, is made by the etheric body as the product of the summation of the person's overall chakra development, meaning their development of mind, body, spirit, meaning mainly their development of mind, mainly whether they're living in love, wisdom, or they're living in fear, sorrow, grasping, attachment, anger, and small sense of identity. Whether they're living with a personal identity or they're moving out to the universals of love, wisdom. So the overall development of the chakras, which is development of mind, which is, the result of spiritual work, that's the basis of the form maker body, giving the person some kind of preferred higher strand or purified DNA genetics. So if you save your mind, your DNA will follow. Now, the real matter is, what are the main principles of transformation? Well, if you know the principles of the fourth and fifth and sixth chakra, then you'll know the work that needs to be done. So the personal healing as release of blockage in 1, 2, 3 is the development of 4, 5, 6 in balance, as applied to the experiences and material of first, second, third chakra experience. How we feel and think about our body conditions, how we feel and think about ourselves, our emotional sense of self, personal identity, and our relationships with others and groups, and our use of intellect in society and navigating in our human incarnation. Those are the realms of the personal self, first, second, third chakra, physical, emotional, mental, social, sense of the common sense of self, common psychology, common ways of relating to society. That's the realm of the personal self. Any blockage there, anything associated without any aspect of experience in those realms that are not of wisdom, not of love, not in balance, not well, not purified in a sense of returning to ease and equanimity and being of peace and wellness. Anything not of that is lower chakra blockage that needs to be healed or developed, moved out of by activation of 4, 5, 6. Love, wisdom, and balanced will. So, green, blue, indigo is the healing of red, orange, yellow. Period. The transpersonal heals the personal if we direct ourselves to that. And the result of that is that you'll end up with just the right body or DNA genetics in your future. And so, for me, the whole discussion of DNA strands is a bit repugnant, frankly, because it's not your body. Your body is an effect. Body and genetics and everything and dimensional form is the effect. It's a consequence. And so, if you want to change your life, change your mind. If you want to save your body or get yourself the right preferred genetics, save your mind. Take good care of yourself. Live in love, wisdom, balance, with a deep understanding of self and reality, and naturally there'll be compassion, of course, and naturally one will seek to be harmless, ahimsa, and then no need to worry about which body I end up in or with. Higher self can take care of that. That's not our work. Our work is not shaping the form maker body. Our work is developing mind, body, spirit complex, developing the self. And so, I don't have any interest in the discussions about DNA. DNA is consequential. What's causal is how you use your mind in this lifetime, and the degree to which one moves out of woundedness and emotional reactivity and confusion and conflict and blockage and lack of love and lack of clarity. If one moves out of all that one will end up with an appropriate or preferred DNA arrangement. So, thank you for letting me rant a bit on that, but but I think it's an important point, because people get really hung up on their body, or Mr. Scientist. I have to prove it. I have to okay this with Mr. Scientist. Mr. Scientist doesn't know anything about this.
And what's interesting is there's so many articles popping up about children, already being birthed with a third strand of DNA that have given rise to a lot of speculative understanding about what's really going on in relationship to ascension and
well, I can tell you
and evolution. So
I know where you're going with this. First of all, according to the raw material, there's something called a new breed or new tribe, which really is fourth density wanderers. They're from fourth dimensional positive planets, like the Pleiades, those that are in association with Earth. These are evolved civilizations in the dimension above our own, positively oriented, who have now sent wanderers, and that's the basis of what is commonly called indigo children, crystal children, all that. These are not, they're green, and they're not children. Ra says that they're double-bodied, which means in many cases they have fourth dimensional body, green ray, fourth chakra related energy body, energy field, activated partially or substantially. That's the basis for their paranormal powers and their precociousness in mind and heart. They're really, really kindly, or really, really wise, mature for their age. But it's not just children. They grow up, So they may be 20 or 40 or 50 or 60. This has been going on for a few decades, Ra said. Now, Ra said they're double-bodied, which means they come in early before the end of this 3D cycle, before the fourth density cycle ends, before the fourth density cycle starts fully. They're here for experience and to be of benefit to the world. These are fourth density wanderers, and there's no genetic hybridization going on. We're talking about souls that are born to mothers in the ordinary, common way, and they just happen to be advanced spiritually as a result, as Ra would say, of their fourth dimensional energy body, heart chakra, related energy field activated much more than normal for anybody in 3D incarnation. So that's the first matter. That's a sign of the times, a sign of the ending of third density and the beginning of the new age, right? Then you have negative ETs who are doing abduction, hybridization, genetic manipulation, all sorts of funny business, and it's violation, and it's a form of abuse. And in my opinion, the women or people who think that that's a good thing for human evolution are heavily deceived because it's a violation of free will. Now, you can say there are contracts made and agreements made. Yeah, that's true. That's called karma. However, the person who's born to an abusive parent also has made the has the karma of that family incarnation, and has made the arrangement with those souls in higher dimension to go into that family where they knew before birth that they would be abused and harmed and hurt. Now, that's not called blaming the victim. That's called the metaphysical law of karma. Now, if you don't want to take responsibility for it, go right ahead. But I personally take full responsibility for my side of being the cause of all the suffering and pain in my own personal life. And I can blame others, but I also take ultimate responsibility for all of it. Number one. Number two, it's very clear, Ra talks about part of the purposes of abduction or negative ET or Orion contact, implantation of false memories and mind control and soul control, and they don't use the word soul, but deeper levels of control of the person, and that they lie. So they'll tell you whatever. And that the hallmark of positive ET contact is no fear, no sense of violation, no upset. And Ra said that the Confederation is very, very sensitive to make sure that there's no fear in the person if contact is made with a person from positive ET Confederation groups. So any contact with ET, if it really is ET, it could be military, it could be satanic, it could be delusional, it could be all sorts of things. But anything that really is with the non-human contact that involves violation, terror, fear, trauma, confusion, upset, wounding physically is, in my book, negative ET contact. Period. I know many positive spiritual teachers. They never do anything to harm anyone. They don't want anything from you. They're just fine. They don't need anything from their students. If they need something from their student, they're not a great teacher. The great teacher is like the sun. The sun radiates and shines love light endlessly until it's over, for aeons and eons. That's what a great being does. They simply radiate love light endlessly. They don't take. They don't need to take. They have a renewable resource called infinity they draw from. The infinite creator, the one infinite, intelligent infinity. That's where they're drawing from. So they don't need anything from humans. They don't need bodies, tissues, and this and that. They don't need to make a race for themselves or others. So any contact that involves scarring of the body, terror, trauma, panic, fear, sense of violation, confusion, consternation, deeply upsetting, is all negative contact. Negative ET, of course, no matter what they tell you. And so there are some people who feel that they've been hybridized, they've been the mother carrier for hybrid children. Well, as far as I know, that's that's a program of negative extraterrestrials for control of humanity. That's not New Age. That's not indigo children, crystal children, or double-bodied fourth-density wanderers. It's completely different. And so, if people can disagree, that's just fine. But that's how I see it. There are positive extraterrestrial groups. There are negative extraterrestrial groups. They have completely different intentions. They have completely different modes of contact. One, the positive group, is profoundly committed to harmlessness and non-violation, non-infringement, and non-wounding. Uplift. They want to help. They don't want to hurt. And they don't want to make more confusion or upset anybody. And the negative group is rapacious and deceptive, and they have no morals and no scruples, and they'll do anything they can get away with. And they'll say whatever they can to put the person into a submissive, obedient, docile, subordinate state of mind, and that's that. And if the person... I did a long interview with Deborah Lindemann about abduction many years ago. If people want to believe that, that alien that did this and that to me, and I was so upset, but that was my problem, but they really love me, and they're trying to help humanity for the future, if you believe that, go right ahead. But I think that that's just the pablum and the deceptive cover story that they wish you to believe so that you'll be an obedient slave or vessel for them.
So how do we get here between positive ETs and negative ETs when it's all part of the one infinite creator?
All that is the one infinite creator. The appearance of separation is why we call it parts, or we perceive separation into what appears to be parts, but all is one. The question is, why is that happening on planet Earth? The reason it's happening on planet Earth, I wrote an essay called Human Crisis and Divine Plan. Human Crisis and Divine Plan, there's a PDF of it and people can find it online. As far as I know, there are 3 different consciousness groups that constitute Earth humanity today. Positive, negative, and non-oriented. Positive doesn't mean good, negative doesn't mean bad. Electricity, there's electromagnetism. Electrical, yang. Magnetic, yin. That's one way of talking about it. There's yin and yang. There's day and night. There's male and female. That's not good and bad. You can judge it if you want, but I'm not. And so, for convenience sake, we use the term positive path, negative path. Service to other or service to all, with love, seeking unity and truth, to benefit self and other, all. Or service to self. Seeking endless power, through control, manipulation, domination, deception, etc. And so Those are the two polarized groups of people on Earth. And then the largest group, however, is those who Ross said are in the vast sinkhole of indifference, meaning they don't really make any strong spiritual seeking, positive or negative, or with virtue or against virtue. We're just talking about virtue and love and heart chakra or not. Positive path includes love and all the qualities of heart. The negative path does not. Hindus know about it. Buddhists know about it. These are called higher dimensional devas and asuras. Asuras, negative, fighting, jealous, angry gods. Devas, shining, radiant ones, gods. These are simply higher dimensional polarized groups. As above, so below. Down in this third dimension, we also have positive and negatively oriented groups and individuals, and those who haven't made their choice so clearly yet. And it's simply part of cosmic plan for the some of the various functions of this solar system in the life of a chain or linked group of 7 solar systems in this sector of the galaxy. It's my understanding that this solar system has certain functions, is playing certain functions for the evolution of 3D souls in the sector, to be hosting positive and negative and non-oriented souls during this first third density cycle on planet Earth. So I got you a little bit beyond the question, but the presence of evil, so-called, and good, and those who don't seem to appreciate either, or can be, who are self-oriented one way or the other and committed to my growth and what's good for all, or committed to my power aggrandizement at any cost, positive, negative. So those who are positive, those who are negative, those who are not really either fully. They're kindly enough, but they're really not committed to positive path, and they're selfish, basically, but they're not really committed to domination and control at any cost. They're not positive, not negative, whatever. If we want to classify their orientation of consciousness, I think that's reasonable. But that's not essence. Essence is God. All is God. All is one. Yes, indeed. Of course. I'm not judging. But it is simply given to Earth's first third density, what I think is now Earth's first third density cycle of human life, to let this mix of souls live here and have experience and develop themselves. And so we chose to come to a planet like this at this time.
So then the question is, as we see the mixed bag of, like you said, the 3 categories, is how do you move forward when you are sort of in the midst of this illusion? You look around and you say, okay, well, there's this group, and then there's this group, and then here's this dynamic that's going, and how can you move forward? Obviously, you've mentioned, doing your work, making the choice, seeking knowledge and gnosis, but at the same time, it just seems such a confusing.
Well, I think you have to be clear. You have to clarify what is your particular confusion in this case. I mean, I've explained pretty thoroughly some of the principles of soul evolution, development of higher chakras, 4, 5, 6 in balance, and the ways of clearance of lower chakra blockages or psychological conflict or old wounding or wrong view or misunderstanding. The development, the way forward is the way of expansion into our greater potential, which is very clearly explained, not fully, but pretty clearly, by the qualities of 4th and 5th and 6th chakras. Now that's the way. The question, I would say, is what's your particular confusion?
Well, more than anything, I was wanting to bring something relevant to the social matrix. In other words, to put it in context, you see the suppression of information, you see restriction of human rights, you see all these issues playing along as in a game board, so to speak. And one is to make sense of what's going on in relationship to how one is growing, how one is growing in a I want to say spiritual way, obviously, but at the same time, it's like how do the teeth of the wheels merge from the spiritual factors to the social factors? I don't know if the question is coming out as clear as I'd like it to be, but
well, I think
go ahead.
So Ross said the proper role for the entity in third density is to experience all things desired. The purpose of third density is to learn the ways of love. If we are clear that our path is positive path, then our work is healing and balance, deep self-understanding and release of what we don't need any longer, development of love, wisdom, and balance, and the right use of will. And then one can share that with humanity in any way one wishes. If one is committed to deep, true, holistic self-benefit, which means be good to yourself, really, that's not selfishness, that's self-care. That's love as applied to self. Even though self is sort of a fiction, or the sense of separation of self is a distortion, because all is one, law of one, that's true, still we have a sense of self, obviously. So, bring love and wisdom and understanding and balance and clarity to our sense of self. Then, experience all things desired. And so if you want to help others, help others. And sometimes the helping is comforting and quiet and wordless and being with them and caring for them, saying little. And sometimes the helping is speaking words of benefit, of truth, kindly, appropriately, at the right time, in the right way, gently, in relevance, without infringing, without bothering anybody, as the person is seeking, depending on the situation. So that's brought into society as however the person wishes. So some people do teaching and writing and channeling and counseling. Some people work in hospitals, and some people work in cleaning the street, and some people take care of children, and some people take care of fields and farms, and some people are artists, and people do their own thing. And some people stay home and study. Some people stay in a temple and meditate. Well, these are all ways of helping Earth and helping humanity. So you do your own thing. Is that clear?
Yeah, I mean, that part was perfectly clear. I guess where I was going with this, how do you, here we are approaching, for instance, in another year and a half or so, we're approaching another presidential election, for instance. Okay, so how do you go about establishing a sense of self-authority or reliance in terms of free will when you know that the direction that the matrix seems to be gearing is completely contradictory to where one wants to go? So you see what I'm saying? It's where that inner conflict is. Is still there.
I don't see an inner conflict there, but I see a normal reaction of being pained and aggrieved and grieved and disappointed, and a whole host of emotional reactions associated with that reality, that we want the best for all in peace and justice and freedom and opportunity and protection of free will and kindliness and opportunities for all. And that's not where the human leadership wants the world to go. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. Now, we would first have to handle our emotional reactivity to all that, to that reality, and come to understand why it is that we chose to be here at this time, because we're not here by accident. No one forced us to be here from higher dimensions before incarnation, before birth. It's pretty clear to the soul and to our helpers just what we're going to be getting, what we're choosing to be born into. The tendencies or probability vortices of how humanity will develop during the incarnation, during the time span of our life in body, that was known before birth. Not that everything is determined, but the basic broad sweep of where human society is going, global culture is going, was known before birth. So, we have to accept that. And it's hard to accept, all the ugliness and injustice and deception and control mechanisms and police state and this and that, New World Order and all that. And you do whatever you feel is best. and if you trust yourself, and you know that you walk in, you wish to do no harm, and you wish to, help all, and be good to yourself and be reasonable and not become a martyr, and continue the balance of love and wisdom, and seek to know what's best for self and all and other, then you are in a state of spiritual empowerment. Then you trust yourself, you know your strengths and weaknesses, you know what you can do and what's beyond your ability, you know what you like and what you don't like, you know what seems right that I'm going to do, and what seems right that I can't do, and what seems wrong that I'm going to avoid, and what seems wrong but I'm going to do it anyway because I have some desire for it, hopefully not hurting oneself or other too much. If and you're going to get payback, of course, there's karma and consequence, and all of that is known somewhat, then you just, trust yourself enough to follow your true heart's desire. And if you want to help the world, do your thing. Everybody's got to find their own way.
Thank you. That really hit the spot.
Okay.
I guess I was, self-empowerment was what did it for me when you said that, because it seemed like I wasn't quite getting the understanding that that we're going to get there from here, with what was said before, and so thank you. That really summed it up nicely.
You're welcome. I mean, from the Christian eschatological perspective, echoed somewhat by the Islamic eschatological perspective. Eschatology is the study of end times. There's a very thoughtful and important speaker, Islamic teacher, Sheikh Imran Hossein, who's very much against violence and war and jihadism and all of that. But he speaks at length about Islamic Quranic eschatology, or end times, the end times teachings of the Quran. That's not so different than the end times teaching of the Book of Revelations and New Testament. And the view from the Christian is somewhat like before the coming of the Son of Man, or the saints come marching in, or the new heaven and new earth, what we're going to have is the world will be akin to the time of Noah before the flood, which I think is really before the fall of Atlantis, about 11,000 years ago, according to Ra's timing. 11,000 years ago, according to Ra's timing, Atlantis went down and destroyed itself by warfare. Now, the time of Noah in the Bible, in the Old Testament, is understood as a time of exceptional wickedness, and like Sodom and Gomorrah and all that. That kind of consciousness, that kind of willing submission to evil materialism, unbridled self-centeredness, perversity of all kinds, harm, reveling in the ugly and the cruel and the absolute self-aggrandizement way of negatives. That's going to characterize society before the end. And I think that's what's characterizing society or global culture today. I mean, you look at, Super Bowl halftime shows and MTV videos and programs on television and movies that are, out and out satanic, that are out and out occultist, and putting spells on people. Music putting spells on people, movies with subliminal stuff, television, advertising, grotesque dolls and things that are given to children, SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, this is disgusting. 50 years ago, that person who put that forward as animation would be thrown out. But today it's considered cool or trendy or creative or something like that. So people have to, if you want to be clear, you'd have to face head on, and which really means be willing to look into and be honest about the degree of what seems perverted and sick and ugly and evil and deceptive in modern culture today. And yet we chose to be here now. And we have free will to do whatever we want. And there are going to be consequences to whatever we want, or whatever we do. And if you want good fortune, live in virtue. If you want good fortune, do good now, do good daily, or be good daily. Be in heart, be in harmlessness, and kindliness, and honesty, day by day by day. And so that purifies the karmic stream, meaning the person deserves goodness. You get what you put out. What goes around comes around. What goes out comes in. What's offered to other is what you're going to get. What you give is what you get. What you get is what you've given. That's karma. That's a karmic return. That's a law. And yet we've chosen to be in this world of, significant negativity and significant spiritual apathy. And that's exactly why we're here. Because, according to Ra's view, one of the first purpose of wanderers to come to Earth or be incarnate in 3D physical is service to the planet. Service to the planet of love, light, radiance, particularly of what's called the spirit complex. Ra said that in mind and body, wanderers become completely the creature of third density, meaning in mind and body conditions, we're pretty ordinary, but at spirit level, or the energy field and conditions of the 6th and 7th chakra, mainly, 6th and 7th centers, spirit complex, are essential energy fields or higher, greater consciousness of our true being. We're not creatures of third density. And so there is some radiance of love, light, or energy of a pure nature, simply through the incarnation, simply by being here. And so the first purpose of wanderers coming to Earth is, in my understanding, love, light, radiance of spirit complex to Earth and the energy field to help with its dimensional shift adjustment and to reduce Earth changes and destructive consequences of negativity of humanity. The second purpose is to help humanity however we wish. And so, fielder's choice, do your thing. But the real challenge for most wanderers, as well as people, anyone, wanderer or not, who are of qualities of love and kindness and seeking the best and justice and fairness and wellness for all, is simply living in this world of so much negativity or deception and apathy and ignorance and injustice and suffering and pain and violence and strife and so on, living here with that. And so that's a little bit like living in a lower realm, living in the lower realms, like the hell realm or hungry ghost realm. In Buddhism, it discussed the 6 realms. These are associated with lower astral planes, 3D non-physical. So, the challenge really is being affected by, being touched by, being within the same world, environment, society, global culture, with so much negativity, which is only growing. But that's been long predicted, both Islamic and actually Buddhist also. Buddhist end times discussion, which is not much, and Islamic and Christian esoteric all seem to understand long ago, centuries ago actually, that the end of this current age of civilization and humanity and consciousness, not the end of the planet, not the end of the world, just the end of this age or this phase of evolution on this planet at this time, that this end time transition would be marked by a kind of an upset situation and a lot of confusion, a lot of pain, a lot of deception, and a certain predominance of negativity and wickedness that is part of the cosmic plan. That's just the way 3D mixed harvest populations end their 3D cycles. And so this is called a mixed harvest, meaning some people are quite positive in love, some people are quite negative, rejecting love, and many are neither. This is called a mixed harvest planet. Ross said that 30% of the planets in 3D planets in the galaxy have such populations and have such harvest processes at the end of their third density cycles, meaning mixed, meaning some are good, some are bad, some are neutral, if you want to use those common words. Some people value virtue, some people value power, control, domination, positive, negative. Some people don't have those values so clearly defined. Those are non-polarized. This is the way 3D mixed harvest populations end their 3D cycles, in a messy way. And we're here to be of whatever benefit we can, according to however we determine best to live our lives. That's all clear to me.
I watched your video on, apparently it was a video that you did close to 20-some years ago, and you talked a little bit about the ascension of Gaia as it kind of births itself. It was the video on the Wanderers. What's your understanding of what will happen to Earth in this transition?
Well, if it's the video where I was interviewed standing on a mountain,
by the beach?
Yeah, by a beach. That was a Southern California cliff somewhere. I was absolutely wrong in thinking that the transition would happen and dimensional shift happen 2012 or something like that, or 2011. Most wanderers and most people think about these things are surprised that it hasn't happened yet. What Ra said in 1981, 82 is absolutely correct, I think, which is that in the short run we see a significant increase in negatively oriented individuals and groups, and there would be a increase in the positivity or polarity of those who've chosen the path of love too. So commonly I can say, the good are getting better and the bad are getting worse. The people who are committed to love and truth and goodness for all are getting stronger and clearer and more well on that positive path. And people who are committed to world domination and through deception and control and use of force and occultism at the top, they're getting stronger and clearer that that's their way too. The people who have some consciousness but are sitting on the fence may be more upset, more psychologically tangled, worse mental health conditions, and or more avoidant, more enmeshed in the distractions or materialism ways of consumer culture. So the people who are on the positive path are given an accelerant or are accelerating their development. Those on the negative path or committed to power, control, domination through deception and force, they're feeling empowered on their path. And those who are avoidant have more opportunity to avoid, and those who are stuck and unwilling to listen to their heart or be honest about their emotional process or who they really are, what their values are, so on, they may be more stuck and more troubled. Ra spoke about that, long ago. That's what we see in the short run. Obviously, we also see Earth changes, volcanism, earthquakes, plate tectonic instability. We see lots of animal deaths, bird deaths, fish deaths. We see sinkholes. We see Earth's magnetic field is decreasing. We see solar anomalies, coronal mass ejections, and all sorts of energy expulsions from the sun. The sun basically is the nearby initiator of Earth's dimensional shift, metaphysical change, metaphysical energy transformation, which is basically what Ra says is it is the activation of Earth's fourth density body. So you have energy fields associated with each of the 7 chakras. So you have a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh chakra related energy field or energy body. What I say, the fourth density body means the heart chakra related energy field of planet Earth. So Earth is a being. We are beings. Earth has 7 energy bodies, and chakra experiences or qualities, so do we in mind-body-spirit complex. Earth activating its 4th density body is the main work going on here, and helping that is the main purpose of Wanderers being incarnate, and we can expect more geological, geomagnetic, solar, and solar systemic anomalies and disruption as the planet approaches what I think is a discontinuous event or a sudden quantum leap shift, momentary event of dimensional shift. I think that the process is gradual, and then sudden, instantaneous. Like the precipitation of salt out of solution in a cup of water. You add more salt, you add more salt, you add salt and stir, add salt and stir, and as you keep stirring, dissolves into solution. If you keep adding salt, at some point a threshold is reached and it comes out of solution and appears on the bottom of the cup. That is the physical manifestation of invisible gradual changes that appear suddenly or instantaneously but are simply a continuous, the result of continuous incremental change. And so likewise too, Earth continues to activate and prepare its 4th dimensional body, and at some point there will be no more 3D civilization. That's the end of the world as we know it, but it's not the end of the world, it's not the end of humanity, it's not the end of our soul, our being, it's just the end of this phase of evolution. And that's what all the traditions are talking about. I mean, that's what ultimately the return of the Christ, or the return of the Messiah, or Maitreya, or any of these things, that's what they're all talking about, is ultimately the ushering in of the age of love on Earth. Ushering in the age of love. Love and understanding, 4th density, the dimension of love and understanding, according to Ra. All the qualities of 4th chakra are going to be the qualities of the future Earth civilization. 4th dimension, 4D positive. And Earth will enter the Confederation, and they will review the history in the last 75,000 years, according to Ra's timing, of the 3D cycle, and what was learned and what was not learned. I did a long discussion of the Howard Storm near-death experience in 10 parts on my YouTube channel. In the middle there, he was shown the future Earth. And what he saw, which was, in his view, 200 years hence, or 200 years from now, was a basically small community, nature-based civilization. I don't know if he saw cities at all, where they're using high technology, but in a very simple way. Meaning, it's not like it was super crystal city, big machines all over the place, but little settlements. I mean, it's not the only form of living in the future, but I think it's pretty accurate. Small nature-based communities in perfect harmony, no illness, no significant disharmony in the group. They could grow the food they wanted instantaneously by mind or high technology. And their main work was raising children well. Their main work was taking good care of their children and learning and developing themselves according to their own free will in harmlessness, which is kindliness. And I think that's very accurate. And so the meek shall inherit the earth. Earth will begin its 4th dimensional cycle and go through, and those who are committed to love and goodness and the best for all and learning and growth and balance and harmony will be the only ones here, and that's the result of what's called 3-way split. So dimensional shift really is the end of 3D civilization, the beginning of the formal 4th density positive civilization on Earth. The people who are negative and the people who are not committed to either path will simply go to another 3D planet and continue their evolution there according to their own free will. That's called reincarnation. And I think that's the case. And we can just do our best until we get to that point, whenever it shall be.
You mentioned crystalline structure, and I believe that the Book of Mormon also talks about that same crystalline structure. It's not the first time I've heard that, but that's interesting that I've not heard the source that you mentioned. We'll look that up.
Yeah, Howard Storm was a art professor, skeptic, agnostic, atheist, nihilist, anti-Christian, anti-spiritualist, anti-religionist, who had a very dramatic near-death experience that ultimately led him to become a very religious Christian and bring back teachings of virtue and ethics, understanding that we need to take good care of our society and each other, love one another, as a main message he was taught and he brought back, so that we can avoid the worst of the karmic retribution that humanity is creating for itself.
When I did the interview recently with Jim McCarty, he was saying that Ra had estimated from 1981-83, when they were doing the research for the 5 Law of One books, that it would be something like 125-135 years from that time. So it appears that we still have a ways to go in this trail of positive, negative, push and pull polarities. So
it means that the current third density consciousness cycle of civilization on this planet is not expected to end that soon, or as soon as we thought it would. There are various datings and different comments that Ra gave about that, so there are different interpretations. But yes, it's very possible that it goes on for decades to come. I really just don't know at this point. And in the New Testament, Book of Revelations related, there's a view that no man knows the hour, not even the angels, because it's the decision of God, or the Logos, the creator of this 7-dimensional system, based on what's best for all concerned, and that includes not only humanity but other other dimensional groups too, and other planets and other solar systems related. So I think we should acknowledge we just don't know when, and I think it's folly to make dated predictions at this point.
Oh, absolutely. And on that note, I'm going to say we just wrap it up, because since we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But,
so we'll just make the best of it.
Yeah, you see, we don't know the timing of future events. We don't know the specifics of the nature of those future events. But we can know and continue to learn more about the principles of spiritual growth. We can know about the self more and more. We can know about the principles of positive spiritual path, or spiritual path in general, more and more. We can know about the nature of humanity and human consciousness groups and why things are the way they are on planet Earth more and more. And so what's really relevant to the purpose of our incarnation is knowing ourselves and walking our path, and therefore being prepared to be of benefit to others naturally. That we can know, and that we can do. And I think those are the most important, that's the most important focus, I think, for our attention. What we are able to do and where we are able to make transformation. And the future will take care of itself. So thank you so much for the interview. I appreciate it, and really good questions, and I appreciate your way with me.
It has been a pleasure speaking with you. I hope that we can get some momentum going out of this conversation, and potentially I will be putting some of this into writing and issuing being that our conversation has been quite lengthy, I will likely be doing a two-part story for the Huffington Post.
Right.
So I will keep you and the listeners abreast of where that is published. And in the meantime, you have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.